Part 4. Flash marriage of the era. Married to a crazy husband who amazes everyone. Author, Yuan. Chapter 31. Chapter 31, Beautiful and Smooth. Li Wei was the first to go out. She glanced at the three of them, a look of disgust flashed in her eyes, and she said politely on the surface, "Mom, these are Yue, you're off work. This is a sister from my grandma's hometown village. You have to call me grandma. This is your uncle, your aunt." Li Wei smiled and said hello, inviting a few people in. "Grandma, uncle, aunt, come in and sit down." "Hey, hello, niece." The man's name was Hu Niu, and he stared at Li Wei without blinking. Aunt Zheng repeatedly praised Li Wei for being beautiful and sensible, and Song Hanmei had raised a good daughter. Ying Sisi walked out of the room as her legs and feet felt weak. Several people had already entered the room. Song Hanmei stepped forward to pull her and introduced her affectionately, "This is my eldest daughter, Sisi. I'm calling someone." Ying Sisi held it in for a long time, "Hello everyone." Song Hanmei continued to laugh, "This girl in my family has a dull personality and is not as lively as my second brother, but she is very hard-working. She takes care of everything at home and outside. She also steams the steamed buns that we eat during the Chinese New Year. She is so handsome, even more handsome than the second child." Aunt Zheng looked at her. "How old is the girl? Has she been married?" "Li Wei, Ying Sisi is more handsome than her? Do you have a vision? Wouldn't it be a little whiter? How can you be handsome if you are rustic?" Song Hanmei, "Yes, I plan to hold a banquet during the Chinese New Year. Your girl is old enough, right? Have you agreed?" 16, no, her brother didn't make it, so who should she be? Are there any good girls near your home? Keep an eye out for us. My requirements are not high, just look similar to your eldest daughter." Aunt Zheng said. He stared at Ying Sisi, with her oval face, red lips and eyebrows as if they had been traced with potash. "The skin is like a peeled egg, white and tender. He is tall. It can be said to be a beautiful and smooth piece. Small hands are rough, but they mean hard-working and capable. The clothes are so thick that you can't see your waist, and your feels quite small. Should be able to give birth to a son. Instead of waiting for others to notice, it is better to do this. Tonight is a good opportunity." After she settled in, she arranged for Daniel to enter the girl's room. "It doesn't matter whether she has a wife or not, as long as she doesn't have a wedding, she has to marry his son. Hanmei's family is well off and she only has 2 daughters. Surely she can't treat her daughter badly when she marries her, right? At that time, she will not only get a handsome daughter-in-law for free, but also a capable in-law. The Li family has no sons. When the couple died, the house belonged to her son." The more she thought about it, the more beautiful it became. Laughed happily, "Hanmei, I'd like to thank you here first." "Why are you so polite?" Song Hanmei's eyes rolled. "Sisi, your dad is working overtime today and won't be home for dinner. You go to the kitchen to heat up the steamed buns and make 2 dishes. Yue, you can also help." Ying Sisi sighed secretly. Li Junlu's words are of no use at all. How could there be such a lack of dignity in the world? Never mind. She didn't say anything and went directly to the kitchen. Li Yue hated the smell of oil smoke the most. In order to maintain her virtuous and upright appearance in front of others, she had to say, "Hey." While Ying Sisi was working, Li Yue stood aside and watched. "The aunt in the house is younger than the 2 of us, but she looks older than us. It seems that the person who lives a hard life in the countryside looks older." Ying Sisi remained silent and focused on the work at hand. Li Yue got no response and felt bored, so she found a stool to sit down and took out the melon seeds in her pocket to crack them. Ying Sisi finished cooking, and Li Yue also finished cracking the melon seeds, and then came into the house with hot steamed buns in hand. "Grandma, the meal is ready." Hey, you two sisters are so diligent. Where are the tickets? End of this chapter. Flash marriage of the era. Married to a crazy husband who amazes everyone. Author, Yuan. Chapter 32. Chapter 32 Arrangement. You guys eat first, I'll serve the dishes. Li Wei smiled and went back and forth twice. Yang Sisi just took the first trip. Just when she was next to the door of the hall, the cabbage, vermicelli, and pork in her hand was picked up by Li Wei again. Go, the dishes are ready. Yang Sisi, Yeah, where's the cabbage, vermicelli, and stewed meat? Your family's food is really good. You're here, aren't you? Li Wei is always good at saying nice things. Hurry up and eat it while it's hot. Aunt Zhen was very helpful and felt that she was taken seriously. She held her chopsticks, looked at the dishes, and secretly swallowed her saliva. I'm not welcome. You're welcome. Before he finished speaking, Hu Niu was the first to use his chopsticks. The vermicelli was soft, smooth, and chewy, the pork belly was fragrant, and it was so delicious that it left your tongue hungry. He ate most of the dishes and 5 steamed buns by himself. Aunt Zeng and her daughter Hu Xiaoqian ate as much Hu Niu as one person. Song Hanmei's heart was bleeding. The 3 of them actually showed her 10 white steamed buns. In other words, during the Chinese New Year, the work unit distributes more rice, flour, grains, oils, and meat, so that the family can improve their food supply. In normal times, you wouldn't be able to eat these fine grains every day. After finishing her meal, Aunt Zeng wiped her mouth with her sleeve. Hanmei, it's getting late. It's a long way home and the ground is slippery. Where do you want us to sleep? Song Hanmei has already made plans. Sisi, you live with your aunt, Yue, you live with your aunt, and Dania build a bunkhouse on the ground. Okay, Hu Niu has eaten and drank enough, and is full of energy. Aunt Zeng was very satisfied with this arrangement. She could open the door for her son at night after everyone was asleep. After a meal, Yang Sisi cleaned the dining table and kitchen, returned to the room, and smelled the stinky smell of feet, which made her frown. And Aunt Zeng was already lying down. Girl, did you make the clothes on the table? Yang Sisi responded perfunctorily, yeah. My hands are so skillful, her needlework is as neat as a sewing machine. I'll make one for me tomorrow. Yang Sisi was confused. Ah! Even her mother-in-law had never made such a request to her. How could an outsider have the confidence? Nervous. Same as Li Wei. Sure enough, they were born from a line of blood. She sat down at the desk, put on the thimble and continued to sew clothes. Aunt Zeng urged, girl, it's getting late, go to bed. You go to sleep first. Aunt Zeng was a little anxious. She got out of bed and turned off the light. Girl, I'm sorry, it's too bright for me to sleep. Yang Sisi's anger was ruined. He took over her bed and even turned off the lights. How could this be? She angrily put away her needle and thread and walked out. Aunt Zeng was waiting for Sisi to go to bed, but when she heard the door open, she asked anxiously, girl, where are you going? To do needlework. What are you doing sewing at night? If you run out of things in the house, you can't rely on me. Indispensable. Yang Sisi had already hidden her valuables in a locked box under the bed, and kept the key with her unless she picked the lock. Hu Niu greeted her when she went out. Sisi, you're not asleep yet. None of your business. Yang Sisi gave the other party a cold look. She has been living in the care of others since she was a child and has met all kinds of people. Hu Niu looked around as soon as he entered the door, and his mother said that he had no partner, so she immediately classified this person as a dangerous person. To show hospitality when you have nothing to do is to be either an adulterer or a thief. Perhaps Hu Niu is an exception. After all, as the old saying goes, a person cannot be judged by his appearance, but she cannot take any chances. Hu Niu put his face against the cold buttocks, and his face turned the color of pig liver. You, how do you speak? Request for votes. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Flash marriage of the era. Married to a crazy husband who amazes everyone. Author, Yuan. Chapter 33. Chapter 33 Uniform. Yang Cixi walked into the study without sparing each other's eyes, closed the door and locked it. Having just sat down not long ago. There was a knock on the door. Girl, it was Aunt Zheng's voice. Yang Cixi didn't answer anything. Aunt Zheng rolled her eyes and thought, I don't believe you don't sleep. She returned to Hu Niu and whispered to him. Hu Niu's eyes grew hot for a while, and then he worriedly said, but she is engaged, can her husband's family allow us to do this? Just say you don't like it. That's definitely what I like. I can like both sisters. Aunt Zheng smiled and said, you brat, you are so beautiful. I'll go and turn off the lights first, and you can sleep in her room. When she comes back, you can figure out what to do, you know. Hu Niu was excited and scared. Mom, if she resists, shouts, and attracts people from outside, will I be arrested as a gangster? She is a big girl, how can she have the nerve to yell? Keep your heart in mind and be your groom. Will something happen? Aunt Zheng smiled and winked. Is that possible? Yang Cixi stayed up late to finish sewing the clothes. She was so tired that she fell asleep on the table and woke up with soreness in her back. Get ready to go home and rest. She turned on the light in the living room, and her eyes couldn't help but fall to Hu Niu's floor. I found a little foot exposed under the quilt. She suddenly thought of the great aunt whom Song Hanmi had called her. Grandma is the little foot. Grandma Aunt sleeps here, and Hu Niu sleeps in her room. If she went back to the room directly, wouldn't she sleep with Hu Niu? Doesn't Grandma know the consequences? So my great aunt did it on purpose. This can also explain why the other party confidently ordered her to make clothes. Because the other party had already planned to let her live with Hu Niu. At that time, my aunt made a noise on purpose. The trouble is known to everyone. The Qin family will definitely not want a daughter-in-law with a bad reputation. She can only marry Hu Niu. This is to destroy her. Too vicious. She forced herself to calm down. After a while, he calmly turned off the light. After my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I went back to the study to find a rope, and then went to the bathroom to get a towel. After thinking about ways to subdue Aunt Zheng countless times in my mind. Secretly encourage yourself. Yang Cixi, you can do it. You will definitely be able to subdue Aunt Zheng and make her suffer the consequences. After having the courage, Yang Cixi endured the pain in her ankle, rushed forward, straddled Aunt Zheng, and strangled Aunt Zheng's neck tightly. Aunt Zheng waited until Cixi fell asleep. At this time, I was suffocated to wake up, and I struggled hard without breathing. You should observe the opponent's strength until it becomes smaller, stuff the towel into the opponent's mouth, and quickly tie up his hands and feet. She is used to farm work. With great strength, I carried Aunt Zheng into the back room. The curtains in the room were closed and it was very dark, but she had excellent hearing and determined that Hu Niu was breathing in a deep sleep, so she put Aunt Zheng on him. I hid out of the room and limped all the way back to the study. When I sat down, I realized that I was sweating and even my hair was wet. The ankle hurts terribly. She could only rub it gently to relieve it. After a long time, a man's scream broke through the roof. Ah, mommy, my mommy. Song Hanmi. I waited for some movement for a long time and fell asleep without realizing it. At this moment, she woke up and was the first to rush into Yang Cixi's room. She just raised her voice and was about to howl. When I saw the mother and son, I was dumbfounded. What about Yang Cixi? As soon as he turned his head, Yang Sisi walked out of the study with sleepy eyes. What's going on? Li Yue also went out. Mom, who is it? Killing pigs in the middle of the night. Request for votes. End of this chapter. Flash marriage of the era. Married to a crazy husband who amazes everyone. Author, Yuan. Chapter 34. Chapter 34, Playing Cards Against Common Sense. Song Hanmi didn't come back to her senses for a long time. She thought about it all night yesterday and made up her mind to make Yang Sisi the daughter-in-law of Feng Erliazi. This would not only eliminate the idea of her own daughter, but also deal with Yang Sisi, killing two birds with one stone. When I returned to my parents' home to look for Feng Erliazi, I bumped into Aunt Zheng's family of 3 who had gone to the city to visit their mother. Hunio is 28 years old. He came from a poor family, and no girl ever looked after him. Seeing that the new year was about to turn 1 year older, Aunt Zheng could no longer sit still and went to the city to ask her mother for advice, even if she wanted to change her marriage. Aunt Zheng was mentioned by my mother. Vicious and cunning, domineering and unreasonable. It is a powerful horn. She immediately changed her mind. Even if the second-rate man pulls his hips, he is still a city dweller and eats commercial grain. How can an ungrateful person like Yang Sisi be worthy? Hunio is just right. So she invited people home. Deliberately praised Yang Sisi in front of Aunt Zheng about how diligent and capable she was to attract Aunt Zheng's attention, and also deliberately let Aunt Zheng and Yang Sisi live together. As long as Aunt Zheng likes Sisi, she will be able to persuade King Hunio to bow. The results of it? Hunio shirtless and Aunt Zheng. Oh my god. She subconsciously avoided it, turned around and saw Yang Sisi who was safe and sound, and said angrily, "Why are you going to the study if you don't sleep at night?" As soon as Song Hanmi spoke, Yang Sisi suspected that she was also involved. She clenched her fists quietly and looked at her coldly and said, "Are you concerned? I am usually busy doing the family's laundry until midnight and I didn't see you asking me a word. By the way, who are you pretending to show?" Song Hanmi choked, "How dare you talk back? Let's discuss the matter." Yang Sisi changed the subject. "Grandma, I understand that you are reluctant to let your uncle lay the floor, but you can't take advantage of my absence to ask him to come. Can you stay in my bed?" Aunt Zheng's face turned pale, her body was shaking uncontrollably, her mouth was wide open, and she could not speak. Hunio's forehead was furious. "Mom was tied up, gagged and brought next to me just now. He thought it was the eldest girl of the Li family. It's going to kill you." Yang Sisi grasped the key point, being tied up. Who could tie her up? She was also gagged and brought next to you. Isn't it wrong? Aunt Zheng lives in my room. Someone tied her up and brought her next to you. It should be in the living room. How come you are in my room? Yue, you are the most educated person in our family. How can you analyze it? Li Yue was woken up while sleeping, and was forced to watch the excitement for a long time. She was full of frustration. What's there to analyze? The door is locked, who can get in? There won't be any thieves during the Chinese New Year, right? My gold ring. She ran back to the house and screamed after a moment, "Mom, my gold ring is missing. There is really a thief in the house. Let's go to the police station to report the crime." As soon as the words fell, Hu Xiaoqian looked panicked and hurriedly stopped her. "It's so late, the people from the police station should be sleeping, right?" Yang Sisi originally planned to use Li Yue's mouth to talk about Aunt Zheng and Hunio living in her room, but Li Yue did not follow common sense and brought the topic to the thief. Unexpectedly, Hu Xiaoqian reacted violently. Yang Sisi thought for a moment, and a sly smile appeared on her lips. "Auntie, Yue's things are lost, just don't worry and accompany her to find them. Why are you playing the opposite tune?" Li Yue's eyes flashed with a sharp look, and she immediately started searching. "Did you take it?" "Yue, don't be like this, I don't have it." Hu Xiaoqian hid around. Li Yue forcibly searched his pockets. Yang Sisi remembered that fellow villagers would hide money on the soles of their feet, so she promptly reminded her, and when she saw the opportunity, she stepped forward and hugged Hu Xiaoqian from behind. Yue, you can hide it in your shoes. Your Highness Princess, can you cast a few more recommendation votes? End of this chapter. Flash marriage of the era. Married to a crazy husband who amazes everyone. Author, Yuan. Chapter 35. Chapter 35, fearing that the world will not be in chaos. Li Yue took advantage of the situation and pulled off Hu Xiaoqian's shoes. A round ring rolled to the ground, it was the stolen one. It's hard to guard against domestic thieves day and night. I respect you as an ant. Do you think you are such an ant? How dare you steal my things? I'll fight you. Li Yue got angry again and grabbed Hu Xiaoqian. Hair torn. Hu Xiaoqian allowed Li Yue to beat and scold her at first, but unable to resist Li Yue, she tried to kill her again and again. The clay figurine was still angry, not to mention Hu Xiaoqian, who was not a good person. After the corner of her mouth was torn, she resisted. Because she had been doing farm work all year round, her physical strength was incomparable to that of the pampered Li Yue. She quickly gained the upper hand, pushing Li Yue to the ground and riding her. Song Hanmi I couldn't even pull him away. The scene was chaotic. Yang Sisi took the opportunity to run to the kitchen, picked up the pot lid and spatula, opened the door, stood at the door and knocked hard. Someone, come quickly, Yue is fighting with her aunt's relatives. Song Hanmi I heard the sound and almost passed away. This dead girl, she had to make the trouble known to all the neighbors, lest the world would not be in chaos. Neighbors start quarrels and gossip after entering the house. Li Yue always showed off her glamorous appearance. At this moment, her hair was messy and she lost all dignity. She cried and complained to her neighbors, "Ugh! My mother kindly arranged for my aunt and grandma's family to stay overnight. Who would have thought that the mother and son would act like killing pigs in the middle of the night? Not only did she wake up the whole family, but this aunt also stole my gold ring and beat me, so I opened my eyes today." Yang Sisi nodded in agreement. He is worthy of being a cultural person. He used the word engage very well. The neighbors looked at Aunt Zeng and Hu Niu differently. Even though the two of them were fully dressed at this time, they still couldn't stop everyone's endless reverie. It's shameless for a man to go to his aunt and niece's room to mess around during the Chinese New Year. Hanmi, you are too ambitious. You dare to bring relatives who are beyond your reach. I was just listening to it, and the hairs on my back stood up. Yang Sisi saw that they couldn't get to the point for a long time, so she could only remind her, pretending to be confused, "My aunt lives with me. Even if my uncle can't live without my mother, you shouldn't have entered my room. Fortunately, I was making clothes in the study, otherwise there would have been another one of me between mother and son. It's not your great aunt who put your uncle into your house on purpose, right?" A neighbor reacted quickly and said it immediately. "Huh?" Yang Sisi covered her mouth, her eyes immediately turned red, "But, my aunt and I don't know each other, it was my aunt who brought them here." She deliberately did not say anything further to give her neighbors room to imagine. Everyone exchanged glances with each other and knew what was going on. Song Hanmi I must have seen the talented Qin Yanzi and regretted letting Sisi, who was born from an outside woman, get engaged to him. He is trying another way to get Sisi to do something wrong and make way for Yue. Things were developing in an uncontrollable direction. Song Hanmi I was so anxious, but the more anxious she became, the harder she could explain. She suddenly broke out in a cold sweat and her lips turned white. She held it in for a long time and patted her thighs and said, "Hey, you girl is really good at this." I thought, how could I know that? Her aunt and uncle have all the dirty water thrown at them, so you two should have a word. Aunt Zeng was so stimulated that she couldn't speak for a while. I Hu Niu stuttered. I couldn't figure out why for a long time. He did not dare to speak. Afraid of saying too much and making too many mistakes, and being caught by others and revealing his true intentions. When the time comes, the public will be outraged. What should we do if we arrest him as a gangster and parade him through the streets? Request for votes. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Flash marriage of the era. Married to a crazy husband who amazes everyone. Author, Yuan. Chapter 36. Chapter 36 Hardness. When the neighbors saw this, they concluded that the three of them had their own evil intentions, and looked at them with contempt and disdain. Song Hanmi's face was burning. Li Yue heard the meaning and immediately refuted, "Sister, what are you talking about? It's obviously my aunt and uncle who are messing around. When I came over, my uncle was still shirtless. What does it have to do with my mother?" As soon as these words came out, Aunt Zheng couldn't bear it, and she rolled her eyes and fainted. Everyone joins in the fun, but at the critical moment, kindness prevails and people are rushed to the hospital with all their skills. Hu Niu and Hu Xiaoqian followed. Song Hanmi also went out. Only Ying Sisi and Li Yue are left in the family. The two of them glared at each other and turned around to go back to the house. Ying Sisi recalled how thrilling this day was and how exhausted she was physically and mentally. There was still an unpleasant smell left by strangers in the house, so she opened the window a little for ventilation. I took off the sheets on the bed, replaced them with clean ones, and sprinkled water to clean the room again. It was almost 3 o'clock in the morning when I finished the work. I was really sleepy, so I applied some ointment for my ankles and went to bed and fell asleep. I didn't wake up until 9:30 the next day. After being in a daze for a long time, I got up, washed my face and brushed my teeth. Having a casual breakfast, I took out the cotton padded clothes I made yesterday and put them on. Soft beige fabric, simple style but not bulky, suitable size, length below the knee, windproof and warm. Li Yue said after passing by, "Is this the native clothes you made after staying up all night?" Ying Sisi's eyes turned to Li Yue, who was wearing a bright red cotton suit and made a high-profile appearance. The upper part of the hair is and bunched up on the top of the head, like a ball. "I can't tell you what kind of hairstyle you have, but it looks pretty good." Unfortunately, her expression was too mean to make people like her, so she replied, "It seems like you are too fashionable." Of course, my hair is called a bun, and the clothes I wear are also classic styles that are popular nowadays and have been around for decades. It will never go out of style. Ying Sisi, clothes do not go out of style, but people do. Imagine how funny it will be a few decades later when you are 50, 67, or 80 years old, wearing the same clothes as when you were 20 years old. Li Yue, You can't say more than just a few words. If you know whether to speculate or not, come to me and tell me. Li Yue left in anger. Ying Sisi went into the kitchen and cooked a simple bowl of corn mush. After drinking it, she went back to her room, took out wool and knitting needles, and sat on the bed to knit gloves. It took a day to knit one. Just as he was about to take a rest, Li Junlu pushed the door open, followed by Song Hanmi. "Sisi, I know everything about last night. You were wronged. Your aunt didn't expect that Hu Niu would enter your room. Fortunately, you were not there at the time." Ying Sisi originally thought she was concerned, but Li Junlu's attitude changed instantly. "But you shouldn't make a big deal out of it. Now our family has become the talk of the neighbors after dinner. It's really embarrassing. You have to do something about it. Examine yourself and give your aunt an explanation." Ying Sisi's heart suddenly sank to the bottom, and her usually soft tone became more condensed. "When Auntie designed me, why weren't you afraid of being embarrassed?" "Who set you up, Song Hanmi?" "I refuse to admit it. Your tricks can only deceive fools into taking advantage of them. It's of no use to me, Ying Sisi said firmly. Li Junlu took his seat and said displeasedly, how can you, a kid, talk? Ying Sisi turned around and didn't look at him. She was chilled and disappointed. Swear silently that when you marry someone, you will be completely divorced from them. Li Junlu was annoyed. Reflect on yourself carefully. If you don't admit your mistakes for a day, you won't be allowed to eat for a day. He walked out of the room and locked the door. Request for votes. End of this chapter. Flash marriage of the era. Married to a crazy husband who amazes everyone. Author, Yuan. Chapter 37. Chapter 37 Shielding. Ying Sisi wished she could be locked up, otherwise she would have to work even though she was lame. Li Yue gloated, sister, why do you say you and dad are stubborn? You can't lose a piece of meat if you are soft. You can learn from me and be more generous. If someone steals a gold ring, I can forgive it. Ying Sisi sighed secretly. You can forgive me because you got your ring back. At dusk, with smoke lingering from the kitchen, the chatter and laughter of a family of three spread from the living room to the bedroom, stimulating Ying Sisi's nerves. She stuffed her ears with cotton, but still couldn't stop it, so she simply got into the bed and covered her head and ears. Only then can we be pure. Go to sleep. When you fall asleep, you won't feel like you are redundant. Closing his eyes, his face felt hot. Only then did I realize that I was crying. She sniffed slightly. Quietly comfort yourself. Ying Sisi, it's okay. You have never received love from your father since you were a child, so why should you care when you grow up? They are a family of three. You are just a tool for exchange of interests. You have a place to live, food and drink, which is already very good. Why are you asking for things that don't belong to you? Didn't the educated youth in the village say that when heaven is about to entrust a great responsibility to this people, they must first strain their minds, work their muscles and bones, and starve their bodies? Perhaps you are the person they say is worthy of the big responsibility. The experience you have now is just a small test given to you by God. I'll wait until you become more capable in the future. You will be greeted with flowers and applause. These things now are not worth mentioning. Thinking of this, she calmed herself down. Sit up and continue knitting gloves. Early the next morning. Li Junlu said at the door, girl, do you know you are wrong? There was no movement in the room for a long time. Li Junlu was worried that something might happen, so he opened the door and came to Ying Sisi's bed. Sisi. Ying Sisi was hungry all night and said feebly, I won't admit my mistake. I know you won't believe it no matter how much I tell you, but I still have to say that the ant deliberately brought them home to create opportunities for that man. If you act like a gangster to me, if I didn't make a big deal last night, it will happen again in the future. Only after this incident, Song Hanmi would stop thinking about dealing with herself. After all, if something goes wrong with her at this juncture, the neighbors will immediately think of her. Incidentally, Li Yue's reputation will also be damaged. Li Junlu was annoyed. Sisi, you are too prejudiced against your aunt. You have a husband's family, what does your aunt want? Ask her. Li Junlu scolded in a deep voice, what is your attitude? I said you are stubborn, but you are not convinced. Think about it for yourself, if your aunt did this, why did everyone see your great aunt and your aunt in the end? Uncle, not you. You must also say that your great aunt lived in your house at first, right? Later, your aunt explained this matter herself. She thought you couldn't stand it anymore, so she called your uncle into the house. Who knew you called so many people, and she was so frightened that she forgot to explain. Ying Sisi sneered, really? How do I remember that man said that his mother was and stuffed next to him? There are so many loopholes, but my father just doesn't think about them deeply. Make it clear that Song Hanmi is protected. Li Junlu, your uncle suffers from sleepwalking. Ying Sisi, okay, if you say sleepwalking, then sleepwalking. Then do you know you were wrong, your aunt is still waiting for your apology. I'm right, why should I apologize? Stubborn, Li Junlu waved his hands and left. Updated princess, please vote. End of this chapter. Flash marriage of the era. Married to a crazy husband who amazes everyone. Author, Yuan. Chapter 38. Chapter 38 worth 1,000 gold. The door is not locked. Ying Sisi and others walked away, got up, washed up, and applied facial oil when they heard someone calling for their wife outside. Open the door and take a look. It is the speech of Qin Yan. Ying Sisi had a smile on her face and called out sweetly, "ACI, why are you here free? Come in quickly." Qin Yansi whispered, "It's about the stamps." "Have you changed it into money?" Ying Sisi waited expectantly for his reply. "Qin Yansi, how can I change it without your consent?" Ying Sisi's heart moved. It felt good to be respected. She desperately wanted to know the value of the stamp. How much does that cost? $10. Ying Sisi covered her mouth in shock. 10 yuan? More than 100 pieces, wouldn't they be worth thousands of gold? Now I'm getting rich. With this money, she can do as much business as she wants. She held his hand excitedly. Where is the deal? Qin Yansi narrowed his eyes and his eyes fell on her hand that was holding him. It was pink and white and slightly cool, like a feather, tickling his heart. "You can't trust me? Are you going to follow me yourself?" "No, no." Ying Sisi shook her head like a rattle. After a moment of hesitation, she dragged out the box under the bed and took out the stamp book from the bottom of the box. "I have a book here, and I want to get rid of it all." Qin Yansi was surprised. He took the stamp album in her hand and flipped through it one by one. He couldn't help but sigh. "You actually have so many orphans." His face suddenly darkened. "So the one you gave me was not picked up? You lied to me." Ying Sisi looked nervous when she saw this. Although she had already concluded that Li Yue was smearing him, when his face darkened, she had no reason to be afraid. "I immediately rushed over and hugged his waist. ACI, forgive me, I didn't mean to do it. I bought it on the black market. I'm worried that if I tell you, you will think I'm not serious. I care about you too much." The girl admitted her mistake in a delicate voice, pointing right at his chest when she spoke. A warm feeling, passing through clothes and touching the skin. He immediately felt his heartbeat speeding up, and had to clench his fists to relieve the uncontrollable feeling. After a long while, he said, "How much do you care?" Ying Sisi raised her head and said resolutely, "I care that cannot be described in words." Qin Yansi was suddenly amused. Looking at her face like a bright spring flower, he could no longer restrain the throbbing in his heart. He lowered his head and pressed close to the bright cherry red lips, which were as soft and sweet as her voice. Ying Sisi was frightened and couldn't understand what he was doing. Just about to push him away. A scream reached my ears. The two were frightened and separated. Li Yue rubbed her eyes and looked at the two of them. "What are you two doing? Did she see it wrong? Must have read it wrong." How could Qin Yansi agree with Sisi personally? Ying Sisi was shy and anxious. "Li Yue, why didn't you knock on the door? Oh my God. It's a shame." She covered her face. Li Yue calmed down and confirmed that she had read it correctly. Qin Yansi had indeed kissed Ying Sisi. She felt angry as if she had been betrayed by a man. "I still want to ask you, how is it appropriate to be intimate with a man in broad daylight?" Qin Yansi was disturbed by Li Yue, and Huo Kengzin said angrily, "We have a marriage certificate, you can take care of us day and night." Li Yue, "I can't do it without having a drink." "Sister, let him go quickly. It's you who should go. You've had enough to eat and have nothing to do and come to take care of us." Ying Sisi was so angry that she pushed Li Yue out hard. closed the door and locked it behind her, then turned to face Jean Yancy, feeling quite embarrassed. He paused, took out the gloves he had knitted in a hurry, bit his lip, and said like a little daughter-in-law, "ACI, I'll give it to you." Request for votes. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Flash marriage of the era. Married to a crazy husband who amazes everyone. Author, Yuan. Chapter 39. Chapter 39 Protection. Jean Yancy was very useful, so he put it on and said, "It's just right, not bad. She is so virtuous and heartwarming." That Li Yue was arrogant and domineering, and he probably bullied her a lot. When does the 15th day of the first lunar month arrive? He wanted to marry her as soon as possible and protect her. And her feet, I don't know how they are recovering. The bruises on his face have faded. Looks like I've had a good rest these 2 days. Ying Cixi smiled gently, "As long as you like it." She paused for a moment. "ACI, can you help me sell these stamps as soon as possible?" She only had the red envelopes given by her elders on the day she received the certificate, but she had to keep those for later. Used for daily living. She is as good as penniless. Should you go to his house to pay New Year greetings on the first day of the new year? She wanted to prepare some red envelopes for his little nephews. The orphan items among them are very precious and have great collection value. The price is only high. It is a pity to sell them, Jean Yancy advised. It is better to sell the ones that can be found on the market and keep the rest and wait for the price. I'll sell it when the time is right. I've estimated that I can get 1,000 yuan from the remaining ones. Ying Cici's eyes shone. 1,000 yuan doesn't include precious stamps. It's nice to have someone who knows a lot. She nodded solemnly. I listen to you. If what he said is true, the price will only remain high and it will be a pity to sell it. Jean Yancy added, you said you bought the stamps on the black market. How much did you spend? Ying Cici pursed her lips and stretched out 3 fingers. Jean Yancy, 30. I found a treasure. How can I have so much money? 3 yuan, Ying Cici quipped. Am I lucky? Jean Yancy chuckled. Yeah. Most people who visit the black market have no choice but to improve their lives. Who has spare money to buy stamps? These stamps went to the wrong place and probably no one wanted them. She was so talkative that she was sold semi-forcibly. Ying Cici's next words confirmed his guess. What are you going to do with the money? He asked. Of course it's business. I'm only interested in this. Okay. Ying Cici was a little worried that he wouldn't agree to her continuing the business after knowing she was rich. Why not? But don't set up a street stall. The target is too big to escape. Ying Cici smiled happily. Yeah. No more showing off. No matter how good the street stall business is, they can only earn 2 or 3 yuan a day. She has 1,000 yuan, but she doesn't care about small money. She will think about other things. Jean Yancy continued, read some books first and master a certain amount of cultural knowledge. Then when you have business dealings with people and need to establish written documents, you will not fall into other people's written traps. Ying Cici also had this intention. It is still different if you are literate. For example, he can discover the value of stamps at a glance. Will you teach me? Otherwise, I just have to charge tuition. Jean Yancy looked at her calmly, with light floating in the depths of his cold eyes, as if there were countless emotions surging, trying to wrap her up. Tuition, how much do you want? Ying Cici felt that she was not a stingy person. Whatever he wants, she will give it to him. Even if she supports the family, it's okay, but it can't be too much. Otherwise she will fall out. I don't want money, I want your people. Jean Yancy approached her again. Ying Cici's heart was beating fast. Her little hands clenched her pants at her knees, and she was debating whether to push him away. In the end, he didn't push it away. Because it doesn't feel bad. Li Wei still leaned against the door and eavesdropped. At first there were faint voices, but they couldn't be heard clearly, and then they suddenly stopped. She thought for a moment and walked around to the back window. The curtains were hanging down, but fortunately they were not tightly drawn. Request for votes. End of this chapter. Flash marriage of the era. Married to a crazy husband who amazes everyone. Author, Yuan. Chapter 40. Chapter 40 Oath. I saw two people sitting by the bed. Qin Yanxi turned his back to him and lowered his head, putting his hands on Ying Sisi. He completely blocked Ying Sisi. She saw nothing and was ready to leave. Seeing Ying Sisi's hand stretched out to wrap around the man's neck, she immediately realized what the two of them were doing. The suppressed anger in my heart was rekindled. Damn Qin Yanxi. 10 years of marriage. Let alone kiss him, he didn't even let her hold his hand. How come Ying Sisi can be kissed and hugged when he comes here? How is this different from having an affair behind her back? Anger defeated reason, picked up the bricks on the ground and threw them at the window. The huge sound made the two people in the room panic, and they both glanced in the direction of the window. The cold wind from outside poured into the room and blew up the curtains. Li Wei's running back was clearly seen by the two of them. ACI, it's Li Wei, she must have spread rumors. Ying Sisi was worried. She should refuse his approach. Why just be with him? Qin Yanxi suppressed her anger and said gently, don't be afraid, this is private. If she says it, others will only look down upon her. Ying Sisi also thought this was true, and her mood instantly calmed down. Qin Yanxi asked her to find a ruler and newspaper. He covered the air leakage, measured the size of the window, and then left. About half an hour later, I came back with a piece of glass, removed the broken one and replaced it with a new one. Ying Sisi watched him working, her eyes uncontrollably glanced at his mouth, her lips were moist and very kissable. The hateful Li Wei interrupted the intimacy between them. She touched her lips by the way and realized her ridiculous idea, her face turned red. Qin Yanxi installed the glass, jumped off the stool, looked at her and said with a smile, what are you standing there looking at? Ying Sisi turned around and pretended to be calm, I didn't see anything. Qin Yanxi, I'm going back first. It's cold outside, so don't go out. If he stayed any longer, he was afraid that he would do something else. Qin Yanxi walked to the intersection and met Li Wei on the other side. The latter glared at him hard. As he approached, Qin Yanxi reached out and threw him away. Li Wei was caught off guard and staggered, falling into the dirty snow at the base of the wall. Ah! Li Wei burst into tears, covered her face and said in disbelief, you hit me again. Who made you owe it? Qin Yanxi warned, next time it won't be as simple as a slap. He left without looking back. Li Wei beat the snow to vent her anger and secretly swore. Qin Yanxi, you wait. When I become prosperous, I will definitely make your whole family uneasy. When the time comes, I will make you kneel down and beg me to let you go. She got up and brushed the snow off her body. Gone. Qin Yanxi stopped at this moment, turned around and looked at Li Wei with squinted eyes, and hit her again? It was obviously his first time doing it. Could it be that person? That person should not know Li Wei. Li Wei went home sobbing. Ying Sisi was eating steamed buns at that time. Li Wei stepped forward and snatched the steamed buns from her hand and threw them away. These are my family's things, you don't deserve to eat them. Ying Sisi felt sorry for the buns, and stepped forward to pick them up and wipe off the dirt on them. What's wrong with you? Your buns. Why didn't you say that your dad didn't deserve the gift that I exchanged for your mother? As the Chinese New Year is approaching, Song Han Mi, I bought several new sets of clothes. Is the daily salary enough? Li Yue said, "These gifts were originally given to me by the Qin family." Yang Sisi retorted, "Then you get married and you see if a CI wants you." One sentence cut into Li Yue's heart. "Princess, please vote." End of this chapter.